Meeting's called to order. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss possible alternative uses to the Misco Spring building that has been requested for demolition, and which the Historic Commission put a demolition delay on for 6 months to try to come up with some method of reusing the structure. It is the opinion of the commission that the metal portions of the building, the prefab part, is not historically significant and can be removed. However, we would like to save the original structure, since it meets most of the criteria for a demolition delay, and it is a historic structure. It has a long history in this town of Mendon. So without further ado, I will ask people to who have anything to say or any suggestions to step forward.
Can I just maybe get a brief history of the building, and then just, I'm curious as to the historical significance of it.
We did publish a report that described the history of it a little bit. The stone part of the building itself is nearly 120 years old. It was built by the George family, who built or were responsible for several buildings in town that are really landmarks. Their home is the Federal style home on the corner of Main Street and George Street. That beautiful farm that, as you go down George Street, you can see the back of the farm, and I mean, I've got some pictures of it with just wonderful cows and whatnot. They were also responsible for the Unitarian Church. They were on the building committee for the Unitarian Church. Their granddaughter was Rosa George Taft, who paid for the Union Evangelical Chapel, which is now the library. So the family itself has a lot of history in town, a lot of architectural history. The water company itself, if you didn't work in that building at some point, you probably know people who did. In fact, I know you do, because one of them is sitting here. They made not only water, they made ginger ale, they made orange dry. They were the first company in the world to use pulps of orange in their beverages, like Orangina. They provided water in both world wars. They actually shipped water to Europe and to Asia. So we did meet with the owner, with the applicant, and he seemed interested in doing what he could to try to save the building, as long as it was financially feasible. And what we're hoping from this meeting was to actually do some brainstorming and try to come up with some alternatives. Depending what paths we took, we would need help from other committees and commissions in town. I mean, there may be zoning issues. I'm not sure exactly what else. The planning board would certainly be helpful. So that's a little bit of the history of the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you look at the structure itself, it is still in remarkably good shape for as long as it has been used, and certainly something could be done with it. We had talked some originally about trying to convert it into affordable housing. That may or may not be feasible. It does not appear to be too feasible, because you need somebody to manage it, and just the location of it. It's in a single-family place, and it's too big for a single-family home. I thought perhaps some of the realtors around might have some ideas that would, something that it could be used for. Alani? Did I steal your seat?
Oh, he's in the middle.
No, you can have my seat.
I was just wondering about subsidized housing as opposed to affordable housing, like the senior housing. That would get the state involved in it, obviously, and I haven't contacted the housing authority. Oh, really? Okay.
I was recording this, so
All right, I didn't call anybody on the housing authority, or the state on how we could do that, but I know we need more subsidized housing in town. There's always a significant waiting list, but I
What
don't.
what is the difference between affordable housing and subsidized housing?
I
Well,
think the subsidized
I
housing
think-
actually counts towards affordable. right?
it does, yeah.
Yeah, well, like Section 8 housing, for example, would be an example of subsidized that's not necessarily just affordable.
And, and the state could somehow help with that?
I'm not an expert on that, but that's probably worth pursuing.
I think it's a state agency that has to confirm or deny whether something like that.
Does that imply financial assistance as well, or just oversight?
Probably just oversight. I know that the head of the housing authority in Mendon also has the housing authority in Milford.
Right.
And we were negotiating when we were trying to save the barn, so. And also, I know that the planning board is bringing up planning on changing one of the bylaws, allowing multiple family units, which might be condominiums or something like that, as opposed to just affordable housing, which you did not think was really economically feasible
Well-
at that time, at this time?
Yeah, I want to clarify what you said, Wayne. The management would be required if we tried to develop rental units. Ownership units is a completely different story, and if you decided to make condominiums out of that entire building, it might be possible to include a few affordable ownership units that would, and we could subsidize some of that with CPA money, as long as the developer says, as long as it's economically viable for him. So that is a possibility.
okay, but you
Rental
would,
units are much more, financially cumbersome, I guess you'd say.
that you would still require somebody to, you would require a condo association or something, though, to operate that, right?
Well, that would have nothing to do with the affordability aspect.
All right,
As far as the affordability goes, it would be a standard thing where there'd be a monitoring agent and, same as the unit, for example, in Calver's Knoll.
yeah.
It would be invisible.
Okay. So that's one possibility that we should look into.
Yeah,
So are we looking into the town owning this, or
No, no.
no.
No,
this is what we have, this is what we want to see done with it?
Right, I think in talking with Jean when we were investigating the barn, it's a very strange arrangement between the state and the town in terms of the housing authority. It's not, I don't know whether the town owns the land and the state owns the buildings. The state obviously paid for that garage that went up for storage.
I don't know.
So it's not a clear
We
cut.
don't do any maintenance or
Right.
anything to it, and it's under the realm of the Milford Housing Authority, because we only had such a small piece that didn't make any sense for us to have a full-fledged housing authority. We have members that are our town representatives, but for the most part, everything's under the auspices of Milford Housing Authority. Yeah, I mean, even just given the amount of space that's there,
Right.
that if you wanted to take off if a developer or somebody that wanted to take off the green metal building and even expand off of this building that's there to make it a bigger, again, whether they be apartments or whether they be privately owned condos, it's a nice part of town, and it's, it'd be nice to get that back to residential than it is commercial in that area where everything else is residential. So, yeah, I think, I guess if we're looking for an overall direction at the moment, I think that we should, the direction would probably be to make it more of a residential area than a commercial area. It would be my guess. I think is that kind of what everybody's thinking. And then we can go ahead and explore the other possibilities, or not the other, explore the possibilities of, okay, what type of residential can we put in, or can we, grab a couple affordable. I think the ownership probably makes it a little bit more appealing, having ownership units that people can, go ahead and really do what they want with inside, rather than just apartment units that are all just the same. I mean, given the structure of the building, that, the main larger building, looks like maybe it could house 2 to 3 larger units, maybe with a first and second floor, and then along this, the length of the building that has the garage door on it, might be just, single floor, which would be really amenable to probably, some older folks that don't want to have a set of stairs anymore, that you could get a nice, maybe 4 units out of that. But other than that, I don't see much more happening in that existing structures. But if we're working with the developer, we can still keep some of the land. Somebody that a management company may want, again, you'll have the ownership, but they'll still be a management company for, common fees or whatever you might need, because there's going to be upkeep of the common area. And, so it's more along those lines. I think that, to expand on that would be probably a pretty good way to go.
Do you know what the living space in how many square feet in a condo might be?
I lived in Laurelwood, and I had an end unit that, honestly, I say it was like 1,200 square feet.
Because there's over 13,000 square feet in that building.
Sure. So even 1,000 square foot unit, so, I mean, you're gonna have to have, again, unless they have.
Halls and, yeah.
Well, again, it all depends on how you break it up. You could have the egresses be built into the exterior walls, so you didn't have to lose the hallway space. And they would just be next to each other and build them out there. Especially in so that was 1,200 square feet up and down. And I think that the unit I had an extra room off the back because we were an end unit with a garage. So the middle units, I think, were probably 750 to 1,000, still up and down, but much smaller units without the extra room. So you could definitely probably make it happen. Again, architect or engineering firm can cut it up the proper way. But yeah, I think that it might be something pretty neat that would really be helpful. And we don't have any of that. We don't have condos. We don't have really apartment buildings per se. So to have something that maybe would bring some people to town that would like that easy living type of thing. Well, you don't have to mow the lawn. You don't have to. Studs in, it's yours. You have to maintain that part of it. That's all. I kind of do miss living in Lowell. It was actually
Easier.
It was nice to sit at the kitchen table and watch the guy go by with a lawnmower. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's a pretty slick idea. And I think, like I said, you can definitely get affordables in there. And the great thing is over 55 affordables. you know, the market kind of fell apart on it down in Cobbler's Knoll, and, you know, they got a couple in there, and then everything was really just going bad at that time. But even an over 55 affordable was still a pretty expensive house in Cobbler's Knoll, so it's almost like, okay, how affordable is it? So, but something along these lines, you know, it's a little bit smaller footprint, but still gives you know, a decent look, aesthetics, and a decent common area. You know, if the right management company, that would really be a nice place to live.
You know, I think we're thinking of, the reason affordable housing came up was if the town could actually help financially.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Oh, to restore it, you mean?
Yeah, to restore, refurbish it, yeah. I mean, just,
Rehabilitate.
Yeah. I mean, even if you did, I mean, I'm sure that, I mean, the building doesn't look to be crumbling in any way, and I mean,
Yeah. Do
I
you have
didn't get to
pictures
see
of
the inside,
interior?
which I would really like to.
It looks a lot like
Kathy
the
has
outside.
pictures of the interior.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
mean, you guys had mentioned that the interior was pretty structurally sound.
Yeah, it is, and it's, most of it is, I think, 2-story or 3-story,
Oh, really?
yeah.
It was like a
Oh, there's 3 in the back building, I see what you're saying.
subterranean,
Yeah, so kind of slopes it down. Oh, even in that, so there's 3, so that floor there.
There you
still-
Lonnie, I guess it would be the west end of the building. If you took away the metal structure, like where I guess it would be where the receiving bays were, probably there's a missing exterior wall.
Okay.
Well, he
Stone
does,
structure.
he did indicate that he knew he had to secure that,
Yeah.
Mr. Wheeler, you know.
Well, it's got great floors in it too.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
you know, Mr. Wheeler,
Are these trusses in the stone building?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
All of the equipment that it was in there has been removed, there's nothing left.
Well, it's got a huge service in it too.
Right,
Wow.
except for the electrical.
Wow. There's quite a bit.
I'm just thinking if we have to consider septic and water for
So,
that many,
sure, so what ended up happening is that they'd have to certify as a public water source, just based on we don't have any town water.
Right.
But the septic systems in these condo complexes where there's no sewage, they have a pretty neat contained system that recharges back into, you can recharge, say, I don't know, that I go with a couple, you have a cup of water out of what's, they're going back, but they say that you can drink the water that comes out of it, you know. I'll take that word.
just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think I just find the spring instead.
Yeah.
Lonnie, what type
That
of
could be more
company did you
dangerous right
say
now.
that would be that,
Would be just any type of management company that,
It-
yeah, so for instance, like in Laurelwood, there's a company that maintains the whole development, and you pay your condo association fee to them, and that's how they get paid.
yeah, but who designs those types of systems? Like, is
Oh,
there?
any engineer, Gary or Alan, anybody like that would be able to, the septic system, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're common, so, any, reputable engineering firm can put a design together on that. And Mike Mendeley always, said, oh, you can drink the water out.
There are condos in town that are kind of small, 2-unit condos, and I think each, a series of duplexes, right? I'm
Right.
thinking up on Carpenter Hill. And I believe each one of those duplexes is its own standalone condo association.
Sure, so.
So what I'm saying is, would it be possible to get away from the management company concept? The more complex this gets, the harder it's going to be to implement.
With a duplex, and because we own a few in Milford, and how that works is not, eluding me right now. It's kind of the same, but it's not. So in this aspect where you have many units, okay, so with a duplex, you're buying a half a duplex and you own the property, you own everything.
Right.
So ultimately, for each unit, you have to slice off a piece of land in order to do kind of what you're talking about.
I see.
And now there's more people involved. I mean, you have they have their own driveway, they have their home. It's almost like you own a house, you just happen to have another house attached to it.
Right.
So it's slightly different. And in this case, I think that a management company running this with a possible different levels of age and life that we're talking about here, the only reason I end up buying is what it's like.
Right.
And it's gonna be real frustrating to people that live there. And I think that you might be adding more complexity by trying to slice off, this guy's parking my driveway. Driveways are, you get an assigned stall. You get 3 assigned stalls for, your what you have, or 2 assigned stalls, or 1. And, the common area out back is for everybody, and maybe there's, they do a gazebo, maybe they even do a pool or something like that, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know exactly what's available for space, but I think that actually that would be easier.
More
for people.
complex. Yeah.
What's the-
Now,
Yeah.
are there any local management companies that have done that kind of thing? Not so much soliciting them to bid or to do the work, but just to kind of learn from their
Good idea.
expertise.
I could reach out to some different folks that I know, just to see if I can get somebody that would be able to answer some questions. for
Yeah,
us. And
yeah.
maybe even, maybe I'm even going down the wrong path, that I'm just shooting up and down.
And maybe Mr. Wheeler is ahead of us on this. I mean, we haven't really spoken to him since the hearing that we had
Sure.
on this, so. But I know that he was going to investigate options on his own as well.
Okay, great. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, it seems like a pretty neat idea in itself, that it would be intriguing for me to even look at. As an adventure that we don't, we got nothing else going on.
Now, if the management company manages it for the owner, I'm assuming. I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, sure, so the management company could own the property, or it could be a group of investors that own the property, and the management company just runs it.
So basically, the company Sylvan Springs would build the condos, they would sell the condos and
If they
set up,
wanted to.
if they wanted to, and set up, and hire a management company? They would investigate the management company?
I mean, or
Yeah.
they could manage it themselves. I mean, there's quite a bit involved. I mean, it's not, there's management companies that do this for multiple,
Yeah.
like the one that we did, that does Laurel, just didn't do Laurel. They had other associations that they maintained. I think that a lot of it is subcontracted out, the lawn maintenance, the
Yeah.
roadway maintenance,
Yeah.
for the snow removal. I mean, if there's it can be, I don't think that ownership and management matters.
Okay.
I would agree. It can be fairly straightforward. I lived in a 16-unit building where basically a bunch of the owners were the trustees of the condo association, and we made all the decisions as to which company to hire and what work they would do,
Oh, yeah, you know what?
and how much money would be put in reserve for things like roof and capital improvements and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's all pretty much after the fact, and I don't think it would affect the developer that much.
You know what, there was also members of the people who lived in Laurelwood, there's also a committee that, they were trustees of, so yeah, that went all over that.
Just a question. So really the objective is, this commission, the town's brokering a process to save the building. And it's more from an exterior standpoint, correct? I mean, whatever goes on inside, as long as the external
Right,
Yeah.
the
is the
facade.
same, right?
Yes.
So, a couple times I've heard if it's economically feasible, they'll work with us. And I'm assuming that's the developer.
Yes.
So to what extent is that developer even considering maintaining the external and reworking it? You know what I mean, himself? I mean, he's building houses. It seems like he might be somebody that when he talks about economic feasibility, is he talking about possibly looking at for his own work to say, hadn't thought about that, can I turn that?
Yeah, right, possibly.
I mean, anyone who's talked to him, has that even come up? Like, that's the person that, instead of looking for somebody to do it, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well,
It one plays into what he's doing.
yeah,
It's
I mean,
like-
he's developing this whole area, all we're saying is, why not make that affordable?
Oh, I think he knows.
He has indicated he's not interested in doing that. He's interested in working with us, but he does not want to own the property.
Well, doesn't he own the property now?
I think he's
He
willing
would
to.
want to own it if it had a house on it that he could sell.
Would he, but, I mean, to your earlier point about, well, if we're talking about affordable housing and we can subsidize some of the cost of creating the housing and, working with him, is that the economic feasibility this guy's talking about? I mean,
That's why I brought up affordable housing.
right, because what I heard is we don't want to own it, although I kind of said, well, why don't we want to own it? I was kind of curious about that.
Well, why don't we want to own it?
I don't know, I'm just reacting to what I heard.
Well, the only reason
I-
I say that is I've been to committee meetings and people will say, we don't want to be in the real estate business, we don't
Well,
want to.
if it's housing, but are there other opportunities to use that building?
You know what? We used a barn right across the street here for storage of equipment for decades, right?
Yeah.
So
Is
we,
that the new DPW?
I
I think that this is, and it would be a great building, I think, can be, but I think it's slightly, I think the location is slightly not conducive, but. at the
certainly
end
out of the
day-
way, yeah.
At the end of the day, I guess where the plow truck comes out of, to go plow the town doesn't make a difference. Or, where, so there's a possibility. But, then we're talking about renovations, maybe is a developer or renovate the building.
So, but there's nothing internal that has any historical significance. It's purely external, at the
Well,
exterior.
there's a
Right.
nice fireplace in there.
Yeah.
Stone there really is,
Right,
beautiful
but I
stone
mean,
fireplace.
That's not necessarily historical significance.
Yeah, and
right?
there may be some other woodwork in there that's worth saving, but
Bathrooms.
in the executive offices.
Check out
But
the
I
bathroom.
think you're right. It's the appearance of the building at that location.
Ceiling high tanks.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I suppose that if he didn't want anything to do with it, based upon what we come up with, that I'm sure there's developers out there that would be very interested in it. Again, it's just cool, it's just a cool
Yeah.
building to be involved with.
Right.
It has history, whether or not it's historical significance enough to be warranted, not to be torn down. We fought hard to not tear down Norman Cox's house.
We're still fighting.
I wasn't 100% on board with that, but at the end of the day, hopefully we'll find somebody to buy that house and renovate it and live in it and make it back to, something that's worth looking at. This here, is worth looking at just to drive by, whether or not it's falling apart inside or not, which it isn't. I think that we probably need to have some more discussions with the owner. Try to make it amenable for him to do what he wants to do with the road, by taking off. So I'm assuming the dotted line is the metal building.
You assuming what?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So this,
And that's a lot line going right through the building, right? That's the original plan,
so this.
which would have to be reworked.
Where's the extension part?
This is the
Or is
second
it
one.
all?
I think that's pretty much
Here's different.
indicated. But as Wayne pointed out the last time, this has 350 feet frontage, didn't you say that,
Yeah.
Wayne?
He would have to move some lot lines in there. This is the stone part, this is what we want to say here, which is a line right through.
But that includes this?
Yes.
That's.
Yes.
that's all
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And this, but you see, this, I think there's more than enough frontage here to move these lot lines a little bit.
So, but I think that, and given the ideas that we've been throwing around here, to maybe expand it, to make it more condo-like in that area, that I'd want to see the extra lots go along with it, for whoever, fund development, so that would be, that thinks that they could make some money over there and develop it.
Go along with it to be, I don't want to use the word open space, but undeveloped?
No, to expand the building, to
Oh.
add
Oh,
more
I see.
units in.
I see.
And to build up the common area so that you have a larger, maybe it's a nice wood, I believe that this is all wooded still here.
Yeah.
So, you choice cut, choice cut the trees down and make it so it's, a nice kind of little hideaway. I hate to use the word condominiums, but it just sound like
Units.
more, they sound like more
What's the zoning there? I mean,
residential. Yes, you would continue, it would still remain residential, and
I think there's a multi-unit issue that would have to be addressed with zoning.
So
but
you-
I think if we as a town decide, yes, that sounds like a great idea here, that you just, those items get either waived at planning or.
I'm just thinking about, I'm just thinking of the zone, the bylaws we just, or the last STM with the use.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's residential, right? But that used to be a commercial
No,
enterprise.
this, I don't know that we have some spot zoned grandfather commercial, I don't know if that was taken care of.
But that would no longer be grandfathered, partly because they're not in business, right?
That and the use didn't stay the same.
And I'm just wondering if you look at the inside, does that have potentially other uses rather than just living space? Yeah, because I've never walked inside it, and it looks pretty open.
Yeah, I can
It
tell
is
you
very open.
downstairs could accommodate an indoor swimming pool. It would make
It's
a
huge.
great recreation center. But I'm not sure that developer is really interested in something like that.
I think the developer also has a concern that if it remains, that it be appealing visually,
Right.
and if we put dump trucks in front of it, the people, it's gonna make it that much harder for him to sell the houses behind it, right? Which,
I think more commercial,
Huh?
in terms of developing it into something other than just living space, I'd say, could it be developed into something in a more commercial sense, you know what I mean?
I suppose it could be like
A thought I had, excuse me,
yeah, no problem.
the, I don't know, you remember what Uxbridge Worsted was before it burned? With all those little shops inside?
Yeah, with the Bernat Hills?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, something like that maybe could be done, but that, of course, is a zoning problem.
Well, again, I don't think that we let zoning stand in our way in trying to come up with something to save something like this. We make the adjustments as we need them. I think, with some simple town meeting vote that I don't know that, we're gonna get a bunch of pushback on. And maybe, I know it's huge, but maybe it's a huge house for somebody. People have big houses, other than the fact that Northbridge
Talk
Road is
about
slightly busy, what's that?
Who will be moving in?
Yeah, I don't know. Steve Tyler again. Let's stop that with that.
Well, the Northbridge Police keep the traffic going slow up there.
Sure.
They got me once.
But it could be a great, estate lot, that if you had two of these lots, that, it could be sold off like that, and somebody that's, that wants to reconstruct it, and have a big house and a big lot, there's that opportunity too. We don't gain anything like, on the affordable, but, it's not a bad idea to have something like that, somebody that's got some extra cash that can, because it's going to be costly to turn that into a single-family house. You have with a unit, chopped up style, unit style, you'll end up with at least income.
Well, if it's, an estate lot and it can hold an indoor swimming pool, maybe you got a taker there somewhere.
I don't know if you have any. But yeah, I don't know, I think they're all good ideas. I think that, again, it's a matter of, just like down at Norman's house, of finding a buyer once we're ready to sell it, so. And the other thing is, we don't own this, so I mean, we're
Right.
just sitting here throwing around ideas. I think that's why we really need a developer here, so we can, find out what his goal is. I mean, is his goal at the end of the day, no matter what I have to do to work with you guys to make sure that this thing stays right, as long as I can get this, then then we know where we stand. But if it's a matter of, hey, listen, either take it off my hands and give me this, or I'm gonna knock it down, well, now we know what
I would say he was between those 2 points.
somewhere in the
Right?
middle.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was completely reasonable, and he was open, but he didn't come at it as, a passionate historian who would do anything to save this building.
Sure.
I mean, that certainly wasn't the
But you know something, there's folks out there that will do that. So there are folks out there that would really see the value of this building. And again, somebody that would see the value that, like, that has money will gladly renovate a house like that, or a
Yeah.
building like that into a residence. It happens every day. I mean, it just, I worked on a couple of houses out towards Boston that weren't even renovations. I mean, these were brand new built houses that were crazy design architect houses with concrete and all glass, and these monstrosity houses that were just, they have so much money that they just, they come in and go, yeah, you know what? Knock that wall down, that concrete wall down, make it go up in an arch now, right? Come in and say, knock that one down. So, and you're like, wow, that's like $100,000 to knock that wall down for you. They're like, that's. So, I mean, there's people out there that would do this. I think that this building, structurally sound, stone building like that, on an old country road, is got some serious sale potential on
Have you seen the house that's up on the end of West Hill Road?
it. Sorry, where's West Hill Road? I can't even think right now.
Off of
Across the
Northbridge,
street.
almost across the
Oh,
street.
West Hill, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that thing is huge.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the Sardini's house that built all the walls and stuff around it?
No, this is the one way up at the end off to the left and back at Gilmore's.
I don't know if I've ever been down that far, I guess.
Got do not trespass signs all over the place, yeah.
What we doing down there?
Speaking to the microphone.
No, they probably keep the dirt bikers out. I know that was a path of ours when we were young to get to West Hill Dam, because the trails go right down in the back there. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, honestly. But if I had a bunch of extra cash to throw around, I know that I'd be interested in it.
Well, you had mentioned maybe talking to a couple of management companies or people to see if they're interested. If you could do that, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, I'll do that. And what was the square footage of the stone facility?
13,590, I believe.
So
Wasn't it?
13 and a half.
Or was it,
13 or 14,000.
was it either
What's
that or
that?
12,590? My
I was
brain
told
is mush,
13,000.
because the other part was over 32,000 square feet,
And that's in the metal.
the metal building, yeah. And they are assigned, Jean has them as building number 1, which is the stone, and building number 2. So on the,
Oh, I can pull it for you. Great. Yeah. That's cool. I'm excited about it.
good.
Let me see if we can find the tape.
That's all we need.
Do you know, Lonnie, where the spring is there? Is it right in back of the building or?
It's indicated on the,
Well, the well is there.
Yeah. I don't know
I-
about the spring.
I thought it was. West
I worked
Hill.
there and I never knew where it was, but I thought it was further back up in the woods.
There is an old spring way up in the back. So I live right up behind there, and the trail, the old cart roads, I'd walk them, and there's one up there.
The spring has been filled in?
Say, wait a minute.
That would be hard.
You drink the water right out of it.
Yeah.
All
I will
right.
do my best to track down some
Thank you.
interested parties.
Well,
Good.
it's good to know that you see the value that we kind
Yeah,
of,
this is-
you
I
know,
mean, this, I can't even imagine not seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This building's great.
and it's just being creative and finding solutions that maybe aren't, you know, they're out of the box, but
It's so
it
easy to
has
find solutions
potential.
in this place. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mm.
even at the end of the day, if it was just cut up into commercial, into office space, nothing industrial commercial, just, low impact, I mean, yeah, I mean, they did it over in, I just went over to Franklin, working for a company over there, the Mosley Corporation. They do, all of the, like, storefronts for Burger King, and all this. They bought this old, must have been a mill of some sort, and just went crazy renovating this place. It is one of the coolest buildings I've ever worked in. They kept, anything they found along the way, they just kept, you know, whether it was old machinery or wooden cogs, and just bolted them to the wall, and just, you know, it's pretty slick. And the building is amazing, you know, with the old, you know, huge slide open doors, the wooden doors, just like was in Burnett. And I think that we don't have a lot of that to watch, to let something like that go. It's would be silly.
This is such an important piece of Mendon's history. I mean, I was in Northborough and I was going through the woods and there was an old like bottle dump. I found Misco Spring bottles there and I thought, oh, it's Mendon. You know, I live right near there. And I would hate to see this building go. So
I mean, if it was falling down, the roof was laying on the ground and the trusses were bad, the stone was all falling out, well, it might have something different, but that, somebody was thinking when they built it, so.
Honestly, you know, my ninnies owned that for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah?
And they had liquor stores in Milford and had beer distributors. And there was, one of the things that was in there was a huge sugar tank that they would use for the soda.
Oh, yeah?
But of course, you use sugar to make other things with, like,
So they sold the moonshine.
Is it worth talking about other uses such as office space? I would think residential would be a lot more, you know, financially profitable and in demand as well, but is it worth talking about?
I think that, you know, again, in worst case scenario, and I don't even know that it's the worst case, maybe it's the best case scenario, is that if there was commercial space in that building, I would immediately try to get something.
It'd be an amazing office building.
And move there.
Oh, really?
If that was a business building, I would move my business in a minute. Just because of I'm in an old building in Milford right now, that actually a farm that he renovated, and it was an old crumbling, it was a mess inside. Now, it's one of the coolest buildings in Milford. And the only reason I don't leave, because I don't need the space that I have, I don't need the ground floor storefront space that I have.
Right.
It's just because the building's so cool. That's one of the reasons, and financially it's right, but I don't have a need for where I'm at.
You know, I've been in that building, it never occurred to me that it was old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, if you really take a minute and look around, especially if you go way downstairs, like you go down the basement, pretty cool down there. If you take them, and where else is it really noticeable? Well, in Manhattan was you know, pretty noticeable, but on the fourth floor, where Manhattan is, the very front part of the building is all office space, and it overlooks the town, and you're up above the other buildings, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a nice building. They did a nice job redoing it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I would really, can't grant the price was right.
Is office space in Mendon in demand at all?
Office space like that, I bet you would, and again, office space like that, yeah, it definitely, I mean, we don't have a ton. You know,
Just throwing it out there, you know?
yeah, no, I mean, like I said, maybe it's the best idea for that building.
yeah, because you don't
Like I said,
need,
you wouldn't want dump trucks parked up front. You wouldn't want it to be
Exactly,
industrial,
yeah.
because then it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna hurt the residential
yeah.
aspect of the area. And again, that was one of the biggest complaints about the building, was the water tankers constantly trudging up and down the road. So you don't want to stay away from that. I think that, yeah, you know, low impact office space would be great.
Or given the way the building's constructed with that gigantic open basement, you know, something mixed use where you have residential on the
Yeah.
upper two levels and something commercial on the lower, I don't know.
Although it's way out of the way.
Hey, right.
Except for that neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Way out of the way.
I love it.
That's right.
No, I don't think grocery store would be right on that
Actually, that would be probably a problem for the subsidized housing, because they like it so people can walk to certain areas,
Sure, true.
you know.
True. Unless that was developed as,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't.
Where would that be in Mendon? Where would you
Well,
put a
I'm-
house that you could walk
You mean
conveniently?
subsidized housing? The
Well, I guess not
housing
really.
authority, they can walk to the post office, they can walk to, well,
Right. I see what you're saying. The
Abe's.
town hall.
The senior shuttle stop.
Right
Could head
about
up, get a
there.
cup of coffee, I guess.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
good, well, thank you.
I mean,
We, we put the delay, we started the delay on February 20th, so we have 6 months to invite the builder back in and sit down and have a discussion. And I think it would be wonderful if you guys could join us and, you know, see if we can throw some more ideas around and see
Yeah.
where his willingness is to, I mean, he seems like he
What's
really
the-
wants to work with us.
What's there for a septic right now?
Excuse me?
What's there for a septic right now?
That I don't
We
know.
don't know. I can find out from Missy.
And the existing well
Mm.
could be used to just, is there 2 wells there? Was there a well to pump the water and a well for the building, or would they use the same one? Do we know that?
I don't know that, but I think that they, as you say, I think the spring was up, somewhere up and back up there, and the well that's there was for use in the building.
Oh,
That's,
I see what you're saying, so that the other well, there's another well.
There's a production well.
Oh, right, because we're looking at a much larger spot. Okay, right, you know what, these lots are thrown
no, that goes quite a long ways up the hill.
No, it doesn't.
That's actually like right here where they started it.
in. Yeah. And, you know, even if you used it for business, you could actually, because again, you wouldn't be looking for you wouldn't be looking for expansion, or you wanna just use the current facility, so
Yep.
he could actually end up with the lots that he wants, you know, cutting on a small piece for
Minor,
this, they
yep.
just need some parking, you know, and make sure that they can fit a septic in there, that it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll look at it. Nah, it's a pretty cool place. Or maybe the owner could have a small house upstairs with businesses there.
Well, actually, there is, up on the top floor, there is an apartment that,
Is there, that's what was up there?
yeah. I think, I don't know if anybody lived there, but I think that's where the manager worked out of.
Sure. Very cool.
I say top, with the top is next to the top,
Top.
top.
In that front corner there, north,
Yeah.
southwest corner,
Yeah.
southeast corner.
Yeah, southeast.
Can I keep one of these?
It was so, yeah, it was so cold the day we did that, my brain froze, so I can't remember.
It
Yeah,
was
we'll wait a
cold.
few more weeks to think about it. Is it open or is it locked?
It was
Oh, it's
locked.
locked. But
I mean,
Mr.,
okay, I mean, these are just perfect examples
Aren't they?
of houses.
Yeah.
that- When I first walked in, I'm like, wow, is this out back? Is this got a big turnaround driveway at the back of the building? I didn't realize it was.
we also gave him information about, and the information about the Crown and Eagle and Cotton Mill Apartments, and what was the other one? There were 3.
You know, in Milford too, there's, you know, where Gibbs gas station was there, that intersection.
Yeah.
If you were coming down 85 to cross the intersection, just up in the back there, there's another
Oh,
big
Linwood Mill.
granite building. We're gonna just build with granite blocks. It's apartments. They're really slick.
Oh, wow.
I think they're owned, and I think that there's only maybe 8 in there, because it's not that huge, I think. So it's either 4 or 8, but, yeah, and it's kind of jammed in there in the middle of some other residents, but.
Behind the gas station.
No, behind where Taylor's Bowl was, you know, the building they rebuilt there on the
Oh,
corner.
yeah. Where is this?
That was the hair salon.
I
Tattoo
believe
place?
Believe
You
it.
go down past that.
Keep going.
So the tail end, so if you're coming up Route 85,
Yeah.
and you're at the light, and you're looking at the tattoo places in front of you, Gibbs is on your left. If you go straight across Route 16, there's a road there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then just take a left there when you get up to the
Really?
first left. Yeah, it's a really cool building. Because we built some duplexes in there, and I remember driving by it every day, going, that's cool. And it's very well maintained, and so, I mean, it's, but again, like I said, it's kind of jammed in the middle of nowhere. Just trying to think where else I've seen some other cool places.
That's another good place to go take pictures as samples of,
I would, yeah, definitely snap a shot or stuff.
What?
You wanna give them a set of pictures?
Sure.
It's still in good shape, or if
I
it's
think there's
falling by the
Okay.
wayside.
Do you want to take these as well, Lonnie, or not? It's up to you.
You know what, I might just take a couple,
Okay.
just so I have.
Anyone else?
Oh, there's a window open.
Yeah, actually, I think there is a window that's open up there.
That'll add to the value. No, no, no.
Actually,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, me, I'm nervous, it's a heart attack.
Where, is that an upper window or a lower?
was an
Where
upper,
the ghost is? No, the upper left window's open.
but I think it's not now.
Okay, yeah.
Which might have explained why it was so
Dark.
cold in there when we went to
Oh, the
visit.
open window?
It was
Yeah.
colder inside than
Than
it was outside.
Well, honestly,
air
these old,
conditioning.
these stone buildings that are, when I lived on, in my grandmother's house on Route 16, I go through a lot of oil, I never had one. I asked the oil guy, he says, actually, we come here the least. And I said, really? Up here, all the wind and everything? He says, yeah, but the house is blocked. So the wind doesn't even come through, and it was, now I definitely see the difference.
All right.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you very
No
much.
problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody, anything else?
Come up with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the support.
We do appreciate the support.
Yeah, that was great.
Do you want a motion to adjourn? I move we adjourn?
Well,
Yeah, we're gonna meet next Tuesday, right?
oh, okay. I thought you wanted
A
to
week,
show
from-
the.
2 weeks,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah, before we adjourn.
I
quickly.
withdraw my,
And,
Where are the, oh, you may want this back. It's the,
Okay, Jane and I were talking last week and I'm getting ready to, I think I'm gonna get ready to finish putting this proposal in, but just every turn of the bend, there's something else that needs a fix. But,
we're talking about
the
the
landscape,
bidding
Yeah.
process for the
Yeah.
landscaping for,
only cook.
so
Only Cook, thank you.
here's the design that we ended up with. Now, Alan's given us his blessing, we're all set to plant in here, he can access the detention basins, he doesn't have any concerns. He said it was okay to fill up that old well, with gravel. So, but Jane had mentioned earlier that, you know, you look at it and it's quite formal, you know, it's very clean. And she had mentioned earlier in the ballgame about putting just stones in part of this parking area to kind of soften it up, so it doesn't look so overly composed. So it
Stones
looks a little
like
more
in the stone
natural.
wall?
Yeah, or just around the perimeter, parts of the perimeter of the parking area, which kind of gives it a
That'd keep,
looser.
yeah, that'd keep them from driving on the grass.
So before I went ahead and threw this out, I mean, it definitely softens it up. It makes it look, you know, a little more naturalistic. The the setting.
Less right angles, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And, you know, Jane
Yeah.
has a bunch of stones at her house.
Oh, my
that David
gosh, do
will
we have
give
Oh,
us.
she's trying to get rid of the stones, that's
No,
what it is.
no,
David
no,
keeps,
no.
David keeps bringing them in.
Yeah.
Well, they
Have
grow,
a
you know.
huge pot, well, you know, when we did the septic system over there, there had been 2 houses in between where Rebecca's was and 15 Main Street.
Yes.
And they just buried the cellar.
The foundation,
Yeah, the foundations. So when that was put in, oh, bring them on. And the same thing happened at the inn. When he had the well at the Brown House, 15, whatever it is, connected, there was an artesian well
Mm-hmm.
at the inn. And he had a line taken to the Brown House.
Yes.
And in that process, there were also quite a few rocks. So we have 2 huge piles in my barnyard, and I mean huge. So whether it's economically feasible to acquire them, I don't know, but I did talk to him, and they're up for grabs, so.
If we can get them off the site and over there, that would be great. And if not, the landscaper could bring them in. But it's just, it
Yeah,
takes
no,
the
that's good.
formality out of the,
No, I think you're
you know,
absolutely
of the
right.
setting. And, you know, Jane had said to me, because I had asked her about the dogwood, and I said, does it matter to you which one we choose? There's the Cherokee Chief, which is kind of that salmon color. She said, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just, you know, we're just kind of, you weren't implying that we were drifting, but, you know, and I went back to that, you know, we're kind of losing that West Hill Dam look that we were, you
Yeah.
know, hoping to achieve. So with the stones, you know, I think it brings it back to, you know, what it would have been. You know, and it also, those stones would reflect the stones that are in the back, that were the foundation for the barn.
Right.
You know, the on-ramps to the barns,
Yeah.
all those old stones are still there. So it's
Yep.
like, you know what, if we brought them in here in the design, I think it would look really nice, so.
Can we make that part of the bid? Is that?
Yeah, so I'll just,
Too late to do that?
just wiggle the bid around a little bit more.
Well, tell them they can't, I mean, there's a ring there, it's stone dust, they can back right in there. and pick
Have you
up all those
advertised it yet?
Stones.
No, it goes live next Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and I am wiggling every last day I can out of it. I'm changing things from the Olney Clock Shop in some of the paperwork back to Olney Cook Shop.
Oh, gee.
But Eric did have one suggestion for us, and he said, if you're not sure and you're really sold on this water harvesting system, he said, why don't you just go buy the system? And the only part of the bid is, here's the material, you install it. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Buy the system and what, and
Buy
pay?
the system and then in the bid, just specify that the landscaper will install it. The
Yes.
material is there. The
Oh, okay.
landscaper's job is just gonna be to install it, instead of running out and finding the material or,
The alternative would be that the bidder provides that material?
right. The bidder would go out, pick up the material.
How much is the system gonna cost to buy?
The system's about $3,000. I think he was gonna. bring
So
it
that
down
should be
to-
all right. We can do that on quotes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he offered to take a couple hundred off if we worked through him. It's just, you know, I don't know how much experience most of these landscapers have with, or contractors have with rainwater harvesting. It's kind of a new
Yeah.
area, and there are all kinds of different approaches. So we don't want anyone to go off and spend hours researching, you know, something crazy. The system that they designed is really
Right.
more than sufficient for what we need for
I
that
thought
site.
we had decided on this. I thought we had
Yeah.
agreed to this.
But I can't put it inside the bid. I can't put the quote, I can't put the design in. I can't, all I can be is very vague about equal to a water harvesting system by this manufacturer. Because you have to allow them to go out and find it. You can't hone in on one
Okay,
manufacturer, so,
I see. Was that on advice of council?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
well, then let's not ignore advice of council. That would be
He
a good
gets
thing.
the big bucks.
And we could,
I'm sorry?
in theory,
He gets
leave it
the
out
big
there and
bucks.
just
He
say,
does,
you know,
he
you go
does, and
find
we
a
already
system
paid him,
and-
so let's
and
take
put
his
it
advice.
in. Or we could just say, okay, we're really happy with this system, we think this will work.
Well, I think it has to be part of the bid.
Installing or to have them go out and purchase.
What was the
system.
advice of council?
The advice of council was that I couldn't specify what system we wanted installed, or that we wanted fourth generation to supply the material.
Could we go to fourth generation
We can, we,
and buy it?
that's
and
what Eric said, go down, buy the system, buy all the pieces and parts,
Us.
put it in the basement.
Mm.
It literally will fit in the basement, because it's just, you hammer it all together. And then the landscaper just puts it into the ground and hooks up the lines.
If we can do that, I think that's what we should do.
Okay, I think so too.
I see Tony.
The was council aware of that option?
No, we didn't talk about that option. You think
But
we
it's
should?
under, you don't have to put it out for bid,
Mm.
because it is under 4,999, or it's under 5,000
Mhm.
for that.
You're nervous.
You're
No,
look-
it's
you're
part- it's
looking
part of-
very
it's-
uncomfortable.
It's part of the project.
The installation can be part of the project, not necessarily the materials. Like, we could say, there's a rock on site, we want you to move it over here. Well, that's okay, if the rock's already there.
I think Tony is right, you know, that it is part of the project, but if in fact we can get what we want legally by doing it the way you're talking about, then that way you get the system you want. Otherwise, you have to make it or equal, and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Well, do we have to go back to town council?
Yeah, I can email him tonight and see what he thinks. You know.
Sorry, I
here-
mean-
No,
here
no,
are the-
no.
No, we should be clear about it.
That's why we're gonna miss you, Tony.
Mm.
I will miss you too, Jane.
Because you know what, it's, from this point forward, we're just gonna be asking forgiveness.
She knows we're on TV, right?
Okay.
That's all right.
dear.
I'm sure they'll forgive me.
Okay,
too.
so you're gonna check that out to make sure that we can, that's all right to do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
we'll check with council and.
all right. The,
So we won't have bids to go up on the website, bidding documents to go on the website soon?
Friday, I should have all the, you have most of them, and I'm just modifying them as I go along, just making last minute
Well,
changes.
You know, again, when you're ready to put it up on the web, let me know.
Yeah, yeah, and I did, you know, I went to the website training this morning,
Uh-huh,
so she is gonna help me get it all onto the new site,
but there's a number of weeks. When does the new site go on?
April 1st. Pretty fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we switch over. She said if because I said to her, can we zip a file and throw it in there? And she said, no, you're gonna have to list them out separately, and she'll show me how to organize it.
You know, you're saying that the bids would be ready on the 21st. Are you saying that you want to put it off until the 1st, so we don't have to put it up on both
No,
sites?
no, no, I say we just put it on.
Put it on the existing
current
site,
Site,
And
yeah.
then we'll move it over to
And
the...
then I'll get the April 1st site set up with her.
Okay, my
we'll just
my
take
understanding
those
was if
documents.
it's on the original site, it will be moved to the new
That's
site.
right.
Yeah,
So if we get it on there, you know,
They've already
Friday or
migrated
that
stuff.
weekend,
yeah,
we should be in good shape.
yeah.
They may have already migrated the existing content over there, but
Some of it, yeah, some of it's already up and running, so, some of our content. And it's nice because we can do slideshows and photographs and things like that.
Neat.
All right, okay, and we're meeting Tuesday of next week?
a week
Not
from...
next week.
2 weeks from
2
yesterday,
weeks.
right?
Yes, sorry,
You're-
April 1st.
Is that sufficient for the demolition permits we have there? Must be, right? I said
Well,
20
yeah,
days?
it's 20 days,
20
right?
days.
That's 4 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, so in the meantime, we'll try to get the
And it-
photographs.
Yeah, unless he you know, unless he comes up with the photographs there.
Well, are those photographs insufficient?
No,
She
I
took
found.
Okay, those weren't part of the
I
application.
located those, right,
Okay.
they weren't.
Okay.
Are we okay with signing on the garage, though?
Okay, on what?
To sign the
Well, that
permit for the
didn't have,
garage?
that didn't have any photos either, though.
Yeah. Do you feel?
I
As
think
far as I'm concerned, I don't see anything there to save.
we don't, but I still think that it's important for people to fill out, to
To follow the
Submit.
rules.
Yeah,
complete demolition applications,
Yes. That's an incomplete application. I agree with
so.
yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Jane, but I also think that sometimes we cause people unnecessary work, which in that case, the garage will probably fall down before you get the pictures.
Well, we can
you.
vote
I
on
mean,
it. if
it's
you-
the same
but-
applicant. My concern is that if we insist on photos for one and not the other, that there could be a problem.
Well, all right, we
Marty.
just tell them we need some photos.
I
Get them the
did,
same way she got them.
I did leave a message, and I will, I know I have his cell phone, so I'll try to reach him by cell phone.
Does Gail still work down there?
Gail is on
Is that medical?
medical leave,
Oh,
so I think that things have. so-
who's
I mean,
running that
she's-
now?
I think someone's working there part-time.
Leah?
Is he from Board of Health?
We're done, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
give us
cut it.
1 second, give us 1
You
second.
never, yeah, you never.
Yeah, I'm going to move that we adjourn.
Uh,